Welcome back, everybody. This is Miss Levy again. We are continuing on with Chapter 1, Unit 1, Basic Geography, a review of these concepts. So here we are, the difference between cultural landscape and natural landscape. Remember, the natural landscape is the landscape untouched by humans. It's in its original form. So the Yosemite National Park, this is natural landscape. It's untouched from its original form. Cultural landscape is also called the built landscape. This is everything that humans build on that natural landscape, and it changes it from, therefore, the natural landscape to the cultural landscape, the built landscape. And these are all the buildings, the way we farm, the statues we put up, the landscaping we strategically place. All of this, the businesses that are there, they are all part of the cultural landscape. And you can tell a lot about a society just by surveying the landscape. You'll see signs that'll indicate what language is there, buildings and maybe houses of worship that indicate what religion is there. The clothing that people are wearing will indicate oftentimes the pop cultural elements, but also perhaps the religious elements. Based on what sort of advertisement you can see, what sort of foods are there, the types of structures will tell you the architecture. So this is all part of the cultural landscape. And when we look at this cultural landscape and this idea of diffusion and density, we're also talking about regions. And remember, regions, this is a way of grouping areas by commonality. So dividing up larger areas and creating smaller areas, and they're grouped by certain commonalities. And when we look at the three types of regions, please have your tree map available to you right now from class about the three types of regions. So if you need to pause, please pause to access that tree map. So when we get this tree map, we see that we have three types of regions. We have formal, functional, and vernacular. Let's start with formal region. Formal region is also called uniform or homogeneous region. That means the same, homogeneous. So it's a uniform or homogeneous region. It's an area within which everyone shares in common at least one or more distinct characteristics. This shared feature could be a language, could be an economic activity, could be environmental, like climate, or it could be a set of laws that everyone must follow. This characteristic is present throughout the region. Every country or local government unit is a formal region because they have a set of laws that everyone must follow. So, for example, the state of Florida is a functional region. The state of Florida is a formal region. The state of Montana, formal region. The city of Winter Park is a formal region. We have a set of laws we must follow. Orange County is a formal region. The United States is a formal region. The North American wheat belt and the North American corn belt are formal regions, and that characteristic that is present throughout is the growing of that particular crop. It could be a political party divide, like the red states versus the blue states. This takes us back to that Bell work we did where we analyzed the two maps that are the voting patterns and which one represented the voting patterns best. By county or by state, so we can see those red states versus blue states in those maps. Finally would be like the Census Bureau. The United States Census Bureau has divided the United States up into different census tracts. These are also formal regions. Formal regions have a very clear start and stop point. They have very clear boundaries. And this is a more general category, meaning that it does not take into consideration the minority that may be present there. So, for example, in the North American wheat belt, there will be other farmers who are in that region who may be underrepresented. So they must be sensitive to that minority. Remember, formal regions can overlap. So, for example, sitting in this room right now, we are in the formal region of Winter Park. We're in the formal region of Orange County. We're in the formal region of Florida. We're in the formal region of the United States. Next is functional region. This is also called a nodal region. This is an area organized around a node, that focal point, that central point. It's typically the service. It's the business or the service is the node. That's the central point. Like the Orlando Magic, their node is at the arena. the Orlando Sentinel, its node is there at the building downtown. Winter Park High School, our node is literally the high school. The functional region for WESH, WESH television station, is literally right there at its station off of Winter Park. So the Tijuana Flats on Aloma, that node is literally at that Tijuana Flats at Aloma. And then the area surrounding it is called its functional region. And that's the area at which it has influence. So the area around Tijuana Flats, where people are willing to travel to go to that Tijuana Flats, is called its functional region. The area around Orlando Magic Arena, where people are Orlando Magic fans, that is its functional region. The area surrounding the Orlando Sentinel, where people are willing to read the Orlando Sentinel, that's its functional region. This characteristic is dominant there at that focus and then diminishes the further you get away from it. So, for example, the further you get away from Orlando, the less Orlando Magic fans you will have until they're a point where there won't be any more Orlando Magic fans. Or the further you get from the Tijuana Flats on Aloma, the less likely people are going to be willing to go there to eat because it's just too far. So that functional region has clear boundaries. The region is tied together by some central point like communication and transportation systems, or by some kind of economic or functional association. It's often used to display information about economic areas. The node is typically a shop or a service, and the boundaries of the regions mark the limits of that trading area or activity. So, for example, UCF has a very large functional region. It's a very large area around where people are traveling to that university, that campus, to for their higher learning. So different services or different regions can be different sizes. The reception area of a TV station example is a functional region, the circulation of a newspaper, the clients of a department store like Macy's, convenience store like 7-Eleven. But new technology is breaking down that traditional functional region. A lot of times it's expanding it. So, for example, you can read the Orlando Sentinel and maybe live in Portland, Maine. That's because you can have it delivered electronically. So it's really breaking down this traditional functional region. Next is perceptual region, or what's called vernacular region. So we have vernacular region. This is what you believe exists based on your perceptions of a place. It's what they believe is part of the cultural identity of the people there and the land. This is developed through the informal sense of place rather than scientific models. It's connected to your mental maps of the area and the people and where it begins and where it ends. It's established based upon what you believe and you know about a place. So most regions in the U.S. that you can think of, like the South, the Deep South, the Southeast, the West, the Midwest, the Northwest, the Great Plains, the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, New England, those are all perceptual regions or vernacular regions. There's no clear boundary, no clear start and stop point. You don't know where that boundary begins and where that boundary ends. It's what you perceive about the area, its people, the culture of the people. Maybe it's the education level, maybe it's the economic activity there, the wealth, maybe it's the topography and elevation of that region. So again, these are the three types of regions: formal, functional, and vernacular. It's a way of taking larger areas and dividing them into smaller based on commonalities. Next, we're talking about this idea of cultural ecology, environmental determinism, and possibilism. So cultural ecology really is the study of humans and the environment and the interaction between the two. So it's really the effects of the environment on human development and humans, and the effects of humans on that environment, the physical environment. So this is the study of the interaction between humans and the environment. And there are two theories within cultural ecology about how the environment affects human development. One is environmental determinism, two is possibilism. And they are in conflict with one another. They're contradictory. Environmental determinism, we talked about, this is that the environment, it causes social development and human development. And This dates back to European colonialism in terms of justification why they colonized much of the areas in the tropical and warmer climates around Central and South America, into Africa, into Southwest Asia, into South Asia and Southeast Asia. They said that climate specifically creates traits within humans, and that climates that are warm and cold mid-latitude, like in Europe, create more hardworking and dedicated workers and better leaders, and that those climates that are more tropical, because it's hot and it's humid, will create people who are less ambitious, less hardworking, and less likely to be leaders. This is obviously rejected in modern society. This is the origin of racism and white supremacy and the stereotyping of groups of people. This is why they say this is systemic, and that it is institutionalized, because the Europeans taught this theory in their schools, and taught this theory in the schools in the areas where they had colonized. So again, this is widely rejected, horrible theory in today's world. Next is possibilism. This is that the environment limits human activities, but that humans can adapt and change and alter their environment to suit them and the environment, and themselves to be better suited for the environment. So for example, when they can create polders by draining water and creating fertile soil like they did in the Netherlands, or in Florida, as they've changed the course, the progression of the Kissimmee River, and built a series of canals and lakes to drain the Everglades and the swamps to have more usable land. These are all examples of possibilism, as is air conditioning so that we can live in Florida, or building a bridge over a river. These are all examples of possibilism. And we know that the environment does affect human behavior. Like, we know the soil quality dictates what types of food are grown there, and therefore what types of food people originally ate. Or the type of vegetation, the type of trees or lack thereof dictated what people built their houses out of and what their dwellings were built out of. It also dictated what type of clothing people would wear. So we know that the environment plays a huge part in humans and their development. Next is this idea of globalization. Globalization is that the world is interconnected, that you take something from a local scale, like country music, which started in very particular areas in the United States, and they become popular through diffusion to where they are accessible on a global scale. An example would be like Taylor Swift's music. She is global in her appeal. LeBron James, he's global in his appeal. That if there is a major crisis, let's say in Saudi Arabia, that changes oil supply, that'll affect us here in the United States, because we are interconnected. That's this idea of globalization. And the economy is highly globalized because much of our products are made in different countries to take advantage of cheaper labor and different environmental laws and such. And so a product like your Nike tennis shoes or your Apple iPhone or the shirt you're wearing, they may have gone through a series of different countries in the materials and the makeup and the assembly before it reaches us for consumption. That's globalization of the economy. And this is made possible because of improvements in technology, like banking and transportation. So now they can move money from one account to the other without it being problematic, because that's all done digitally now through the computer. Transnational corporation. This is a corporation that operates maybe research, sells, manufactures outside of its country of origin or where its headquarters are. An example would be Nike or Google or Apple or General Motors or Ford, or even a company such as Under Armour. All of this, they operate outside of their country. And the last thing is globalization of culture. This is that cultures become more similar throughout the world based on pop culture and trends.